Hello and welcome to episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Wednesday, March 8th. Hope everybody's having a good day so far. We got a lot to get into today as the NFL world continues to wait on Aaron Rodgers and what is his decision going to be, what is going to happen with him in the New York Jets. We'll get into that today. Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, they got their contract situations figured out. Well, for Daniel Jones, he got his figured out as the Giants give him a 4-year extension. Saquon Barkley, they placed a non-exclusive tag on him, so he can actually negotiate with other teams. Teams can match the deal, and if the Giants don't then match the deal, then they can actually trade. Then they can actually get 2 first-round picks in return for compensation. So I don't foresee that happening. I do foresee, Saquon wanting to play on. I do foresee Saquon not wanting to play on the tag, but I do foresee him either coming to a long-term deal or playing on the tag this season. I don't think the Giants are going to, agree upon the 2 first-round picks of compensation and let him go in a deal where, a team offers him a deal and the Giants aren't able to or won't match it. So it'll be interesting, but they got their 2 big things yesterday kind of figured out. It was the deadline day. It was the deadline to get, their the franchise tags done. Lamar, obviously one of the big names out there that got the non-exclusive tag now. The rumors start up about him, his future in Baltimore, what happens with him and all that stuff. So a lot to get into today. We're going to start off with the Daniel Jones news. Extended 4 years, $160 million. Really take a deep dive into this contract because when you look at his contract on the outside, and I got to admit as just a Jet fan and somebody that has talked a lot about this contract situation, I've kind of made it clear how I feel about Daniel Jones. I don't think he is an excellent player. I think he's solid, but I don't think he's an elite player. I don't know if he should have deserved 40 plus 45 million. And when I first saw this contract and I said 160 over 4 years, I'm like, that's 40 million a year, which basically what it is. But then when you really take a deeper dive into it, it is a team-friendly contract. There is a lot of incentives. The guaranteed is, it's good, but it's not not crazy. Like Derek Carr is definitely, it's a little bit more, I guess, than Derek Carr, or a little less than Derek Carr, I guess, if you want to put it like that. It's a solid deal. It's not a bad deal when you really take a deep dive into it. The Giants extend their guy. They extend the guy they drafted, number 6 overall. And now I believe it was number 6 overall. Now he will be the quarterback for the future. And the Giants, too, can get out of this as well. So we'll get into that. We'll get to Daniel Jones, what this means. We'll also get to Saquon Barkley, then placing the tag on him. Do the Giants get a deal done? What happens with Saquon? We'll get into that as well. And obviously, we'll finish things off with the New York Sports Update. Quiet night tonight in New York sports as the Rangers have the night off. They'll be back tomorrow in Montreal against the Canadiens. Isles have the night off. Nets and Knicks have the night off. So a quiet night tonight in the world of New York sports. So the conference conference tournaments start today. Some of the big ones, Big East, Big Ten, all of them all start today. So got a lot of good games, a lot of good college basketball on tonight to definitely look out for. Obviously, Big East tournament in New York City at the MSG, obviously. So a lot of good action to look forward to tonight in college, but a quiet night otherwise in New York sports. Knicks took a terrible loss last night at home against the Charlotte Hornets. Really poor performance. 9-game win streak coming off a thrilling victory against the Celtics. And to lose a game at home to one of the worst teams in basketball without their best player, LaMelo Ball, who's obviously done for the year, is really bad. So the Knicks get a little dose of reality. Nets get a nice win against Houston. Mikal Bridges makes a little NBA history when you look at some of the numbers that he's put up so far throughout his first couple games with the Nets. And I'll tell you what, Bridges has got to be a net long-term. He has to be. He's been fun to watch. Last night was a fun game because, you kind of knew they were going to win. They played pretty well. 3-game win streak now. Again, 2 of them are against Charlotte and Houston. The other one came against Boston in a crazy, crazy comeback. I'm not saying that the Nets are going to go on this crazy run, but a 3-game win streak, it feels nice considering where we were a couple, even just a week ago, losing 4 straight and walking out of MSG, getting blown out 142 to 118 against the Knicks. So it feels good to get back on the winning side of things as a Brooklyn Nets fan. And obviously, Yankees, Mets continue their spring trainings over the course of these next couple weeks. I had a video up yesterday on Bubbs Talking Baseball, talking all things baseball, talking all things Yankee spring training. So stay tuned to that channel. A lot more big content coming on there. And yeah, baseball season's right around the corner, so a lot to be excited about. So, with all that being said, this is the Bubbs on Sports podcast, and let's get right into it here on a Wednesday edition of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. So, we've talked about this a lot over the past couple weeks. You know, Daniel Jones has been in the rumor mill for a while, ever since the season ended. What are the Giants going to do? Franchise tag him, keep him? What are they going to do to Saquon Barkley? Are they going to franchise tag him? Are they going to extend him? I don't think they're just going to let him walk in free agency or let either of these guys go in free agency. There was two possibilities that could happen. It was either Daniel Jones gets the tag and Saquon gets the big money, or Daniel Jones gets the big money and Saquon gets the tag. And the latter is what happened, and that was kind of the expectation. I think we all were kind of expecting Daniel Jones to get a contract extension, and I think we all were kind of expecting Saquon Barkley to get the tag, because before we really take a deep dive into this, again, at the end of the season after they lost to Philly, got crushed obviously in Philly, excellent year under the first year under Dable. I'm in a massive season where they had no expectations going in. The expectation was to just, win a couple games, show some competitiveness, get better as the year goes on. The big question, though, was what do they see out of Daniel Jones? Daniel Jones played well, but obviously at the end of the year, Joe Schoen, Brian Dable had their end-of-the-year press conferences. And in those press conferences, and especially the one recently at the NFL Combine, the Giants, Joe Schoen, Brian Dable, kept, without saying they want to extend, Daniel Jones, or without saying that they're doing everything they can, they said they're going to do everything they can. That's basically how the press conferences went. They were very, very on Daniel Jones' side, talked about how he made big strides, all that stuff. Not saying that they were against Barkley, but you could tell there was more urgency within the building, rightfully so. Quarterback's the most important position on the field, rightfully so. Obviously, you need a big-time quarterback, and given that he's coming off of a really big season where the locker room rallied around him, you have a head coach that's an offensive mind that worked with the best in Josh Allen, was a big reason why Josh Allen is where he is, and you bring back Daniel Jones with Dable. All the connections were there. The reasoning was behind it. It was basically just a matter of when. And yesterday, you get up, you're waiting for the Rodgers news, they extend Daniel Jones, they get a deal done. We felt like this was coming for a while. It took a while. It took a long time. I'll tell you what, as yesterday went on and there was no deal done yet, not saying that Giants, it got interesting. It was like maybe they are going to tag Daniel Jones. It didn't make sense, though, financially to tag Daniel Jones. It made more sense to give him a long-term deal. Because if you tag him, well, then you're going to have to pay Barkley, most likely, or else you just let him walk. But if you tag him, it actually hurts them cap-wise. It hurts the Giants cap-wise. There was those select few people out there. Now, obviously, they can go on and eventually give him a long-term deal. If they tag him now, they could give him a long-term deal they could still discuss, and that's what seems to be happening here with Saquon Barkley, where they placed the tag on him, but it seems like discussions will still happen. But back to the Daniel Jones thing again. Quarterback, biggest position on the field, coming off a really big season. You can kind of tell this was coming. And you know how I felt about Daniel Jones. I've been very hard on him on this show. I will tell you that. I've crushed him a lot. I did not have any belief in him going to last year. I thought that we would be talking about a Giants team searching for a quarterback at the end of that last season. But I was wrong. Daniel Jones put together a really nice season. He deserved to get a contract extension. And all those rumors of $45 million a year, he wants more, obviously weren't fully true. Because he gets a $160, he gets 4 years, $160 over 4 years. That's a $40 million. It's about $40 per. But when you take a dive into the deal, it's not really that huge in terms of the amount he's making. Some of the guarantees, the incentives, and the Giants can get out of this. And there's always a risk. And I'm not saying this just because I'm not a huge believer in Daniel Jones turning into this great quarterback. I think Daniel Jones can be good. I don't think he's going to be top 7, top 8 in the NFL. I just don't think that's the guy. I think his ceiling's probably a guy like a Derek Carr, where he's very good. He's not great. He's solid. He's top 12, top 13. I don't think he'll be ever in the conversation of top 8, top 7, top 5, even top 3. I just don't think he's that type of guy. I know some people out there think Dable, what he did with Josh Allen, he could do with Daniel Jones. Prove me wrong. Go ahead and do it. I think Daniel Jones could be solid. I don't think he's ever going to be elite. So when you look at his contract, again, I think it's solid. And there's always a risk to it, but with the Giants, especially with the Daniel Jones specifically, because there's always risks whenever you sign a guy. But Daniel Jones specifically, given the fact that he's coming off of a season where he had his best, most just good, solid year where everything went, everything was just solid. I know there's been seasons where, again, he threw 24 touchdowns in his rookie year. I know there was years where he threw more touchdowns, had more yards. But in terms of actually this season actually had the most yards. But I know when you look back at their rookie year, you say, 24 touchdowns, all that stuff, I know, and all that stuff. But in terms of his putting together just a good, competent NFL season, career high in completion percentage, career high in yards, the least amount of interceptions he thrown, turnovers were the best ever for him. He's always been a turnover machine. This year he's limited those. He took those jumps. Now, when you look at that year for him, it wasn't like it was an MVP season. He was still tied for 21st in the NFL in touchdowns. He was tied for 15th in yards. So he wasn't really, he was third in the league in interception. He didn't get intercepted much. He had 5 interceptions. And he had a QBR 60.8, which was 6th in the NFL. So he was at the top of the league in some of the categories. But overall, it wasn't like he's coming off a year where he threw for 3,900 yards, 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a QBR of 70 or 80. It wasn't like he was in that category of Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes type level of season. So the risk that comes with this is he threw 15 touchdowns last year. If over the course of the next 3 seasons, he goes out there, throws 19 touchdowns next year, 17 the year after, 15 the next year, and wins a grand total of 1 playoff game, that's bad. Daniel Jones, let me just tell you, he had a good year last year, but he's got to be better. Like last year was a good year. He earned his contract. He did it with no talent around him. Now, and again, he has a lot of pressure on him now. He does. And I don't want to sound like I'm coming across negative. I think this is a good move for the Giants. I made that pretty clear right out of the chute here on the program. But I do think there is a lot of pressure now because 15 touchdowns, just over 3,000 yards isn't going to cut it for a guy that's now getting paid 4 years, $160 million. So the part of the deal that I do think is solid and the risk that comes with it, Giants can get out of this after year 3. So if things go wrong, they can get out of it after year 3. And to be honest with you, most of the money they pay him would be behind him. So technically, if you really break this deal down, which I did, if the Giants, let's say, get out of this after year 3, essentially it's a 3-year, $112.5 million deal. That's about what it is if they can get out of year 3. So, and again, they can get out of year 3 with essentially nothing. Like the cap hit I don't think would be, I think it's little to none actually. If he's struggling and things aren't going away, the Giants can get out of it and not have to worry about his cap hit, not have to worry about, a Bobby Bonilla situation with the New York Mets where they make some stupid contract like that. This was a team-friendly deal where the Giants can get out of it if things go wrong. But the pressure now elevates on Daniel Jones because, again, he played well enough to earn this deal. It was solid. Good year. But now he's got to be even better. You give him T. Higgins, you go out and make a trade for a guy like a DeAndre Hopkins or a big-name receiver like that, and if Saquon Barkley's still in the backfield and they shore up the defense and they get better talent around him, the numbers got to take a increase. Like they got to last year again, he was just playing competent football where he was just commanding the game, playing well, but 15 touchdowns, he's got to raise that up. And I'm not just looking at touchdowns. Obviously, he could throw 30 touchdowns this year and 25 interceptions. That's not good. So the interceptions and turnovers have to stay low, which I do feel like the turnovers have continued to decrease over the past couple seasons. They have. His first year, the amount of turnovers he had were ridiculous. He had 18 turnovers total, 12 interceptions, 6 fumbles. Year number 2, he had 13 turnovers total, 3 fumbles, 10 interceptions. Year 3, he had 9. This year, he only had 7. So they've taken a decrease every single season. I think the turnovers, you got to feel good about. He did throw for a lot more yards this year. You give him more receivers. This was his most games he's ever played in a season. The only game he didn't play was because it was Week 18 and they didn't want to start him, which made sense. So he was healthy for the entire year. This was the first time in his career he's been able to stay healthy, other than obviously, well, I'll tell you that, take that back. 2019, the year he obviously rookie season, Eli started the first couple games. So that's why he only played 13 games. I believe, they were 1-2, or he came in the third game, I think it was, right? Yeah, right? Or something like that, I forget, because he came in that Buccaneers game. So what were they, 1-2 then or something? I forget. And he came back and led them back into that game. They won the game, all that stuff. 2021, he only played 11 games. Obviously had the neck issue, which was actually a concern going into the offseason. That got ironed out. Played 16 games last year. Only game he missed was they benched the starters, obviously, against the Eagles to rest up. So it doesn't really count as a game missed. He played the entire year, was healthy. So he did everything he needed to do, but now he's got to take it to another level. So when you take a deep dive into the contract, so again, 160 over 4 years. That's about $40 million per year. $35 million more in incentives. So he's making about $35 million in incentives. So he's obviously got to hit those things. $82 million over first 2 years, guaranteed. And he's making about $82 million over the first 2 years is the guaranteed. $94 million virtually guaranteed. That, kind of takes in all the years and stuff. So again, technically, the Giants can get out of this deal after year 3. And that's obviously not what you want. You want this deal to go 4 years and have many playoff wins involved and all that stuff. You want that, right? But if this does go south, they can get out of year 3, and it doesn't really hurt them for the future. It doesn't. It doesn't. It's not like they're in a situation where they get out of it, year 2, there's an opt-out, but they still have 4 years ahead of them where they're still going to have to pay him, or the cap hit's going to be ridiculous. They can get out of this after year 3 and be, you know what, it was bad, it was ugly, but, or let's say he's playing well, but maybe not to the level of, we're going to max out, he's going to get all the money on this contract type of thing. They can opt out and say, you know what, opt out of it, or have that opt out and then maybe bring him back on a lower deal or something like that. It would be interesting to see how this all goes. But the first year cap hit is about $18.5, $19 million. Again, essentially a 3-year, $12.5 million deal, and can get out of it after the third year. So this is big. This is a big deal for the Giants as they extend Daniel Jones. You got to credit where credit's due, man. I mean, he went into last year with a lot of questions around his future. Brian Daboll takes over as head coach. Joe Shane takes over, obviously, as the general manager. You went into the season where I, as a fan, or not, as just a observer, I'm obviously a big Jets fan, but as just a, New York sports guy and, following the Giants, obviously keeping tabs on them as well, I thought for sure, and I've said this many times during the summer, during training camp, and come to find out that Daboll was giving Wink a lot of the plays when Daniel Jones was playing, when Daniel Jones was in training camp, to test his toughness, test his, mentally, does he get down on himself, or does he able to stay strong and able to stay confident, all that stuff? How does he handle adversity? That's what we learn more now. He had a really bad training camp, and I thought at times that, again, I've always gotten this feeling from Daboll and Shane, and I guess I shouldn't be surprised that they had a successful year. I mean, there's obviously a surprising element because they went into the season with the expectation of go out, play well, competent. What you see week 1, maybe win 5-6 games, that's about it. I think I had them at 6-11. Lay the foundation, potentially go into the offseason and draft or trade for a quarterback. But I've always got that feeling of Brian Daboll wanted to win. Like he didn't really want this thing to drag on. And I thought there for a while that potentially Tyrod Taylor, if Daniel Jones started out the year like 0-3 and he wasn't playing well, potentially Tyrod Taylor could take over. So, because Tyrod Taylor, again, he's not like a solid high-level starter in this league, but he's a good quality backup. He's the guy that can go out there and keep you in games. He's a solid backup. He's almost like a Gardner Minshew in a way where he can start. He's not going to win you a lot, but he can keep you in games. He can win you a game. He's solid as a backup. And I thought there was a chance that could happen, especially during training camp. But obviously Daniel Jones kind of shut up all the critics because now he's getting a big deal. And now he's, with the Giants for another at least 3 years. Giants fans hope the full 4. And look, I mean, again, you can't take this away from him. I don't care who the quarterback was, Kirk Cousins. He won a playoff game. He went on the road and was the best player on the field. And that was one of the biggest things that you went into this offseason if you were a Giants fan. and you were trying to sell people on why Daniel Jones should be back to the Giants, is he took a team with virtually nobody around him outside of Saquon, went on the road in Minnesota to a team that had one of the better records in the regular season in the entire NFL and won a game, and the best player on the field was Daniel Jones. And the team that they lost to, well, they were on the road at the Link against the Eagles, who almost beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And the Eagles are 10 times better than them. So that's all you need to know really about Daniel Jones. He took a team won a playoff game. And I've criticized Daniel Jones a lot, but I can't take that away from him. He won a playoff game. You win a playoff game in this league, you're going to get paid. You win playoff games in this league, you're going to get paid. And Daniel Jones just did. So, solid move for the Giants. Again, I had my doubts about how much they would give him. I thought this was a solid deal. I thought it's a team-friendly deal. If it goes south, they can get out of it. Not much cap hit. So I thought all around a solid deal. And we heard reports yesterday that they've been talking in person for about the last 9 days. And yesterday it got a little choppy towards the end where it didn't think a deal would get done. But they got a deal done. And Saquon, the non-exclusive tag gets placed on him. And look, I don't disagree. Again, the right way to go was extend Danny Dimes or Danny Dumpster or whatever you want to call him. Daniel Jones, I won't call him Danny Dumpster anymore. That was obviously priority number one. And, most likely tagging, Barkley was number 2. Barkley last year was 4th in attempts, 4th in yards, 9th in touchdowns, 25th in average. So was top of the league in many of the big statistical categories. Had a really good season. Another guy went into last year with a lot of questions around his health and his future and stepped up in a big way. Had his most yards he's ever had in a season. Had the most carries he's ever had in the season. Got a heavy workload. And another guy too. He hasn't played 16. He hasn't played a full season since 2018. Last year was the first time since. He went 3 years without playing a full season due to a lot of the knee injuries, specifically obviously in 2020 where he tore his ACL. So all that stuff. So it makes sense, though. Again, it makes sense. They can still negotiate, but again, there's rumors out there that he wants Christian McCaffrey money. Are the Giants going to give a guy Christian McCaffrey money, or is this going to be another thing where, all right, play on the tag, prove to us again that you can go out there and stay healthy. You were able to do it in a big year contract-wise. Now go out there and get into it. So that's going to be big. That's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out. Do the Giants end up extending Barkley? We heard back in November that they offered him about $12.5 million a year. I would not think that he's going to accept it. Especially that was back in November. He still put together a couple nice games. I believe he had a solid game too against the Vikings where he had 2 touchdowns. It was one of the Giants' only kind of burst of offense against the Eagles. He had 9 carries, averaged 6.8 yards per carry there. He was solid last year. And again, you can make the argument, and I don't want to act like I'm taking anything away from Daniel Jones, but there was games where Saquon saved them. Like if Daniel Jones didn't have Saquon, the Giants wouldn't have been the same team. They wouldn't have been. So they tag Saquon. Other teams can obviously still negotiate, but we'll see, how it all plays out. Again, I think Saquon's going to be with the Giants. I think he'll play on the tag, and you'll kind of see how it all ends up playing out. Again, this is could be a 1-year prove it type thing where, hey, go out there, put together another 15, 16 games for us, take us to the playoffs, be a big factor in Daniel Jones' success this year, and we'll give you a long-term deal. Running backs are tough. They're tough because you just never know. You never know what you're going to get out of them. You could sign Barkley for a 4-year deal, and that's with every position, but specifically the running backs and specifically a guy that has a track record now. You can give him a 4-year deal, and he plays year 1, plays 16 games. The next 3 years, he plays 10, 8, and 12, and he's not healthy. And if he's not healthy for the playoffs, that's even worse. So I tell you what, the franchise tag has been very popular, and maybe as we get into the future, this might be a common occurrence where a lot of people just get the tag. A lot of running backs just get the tag. It seems to be a common thing. The best running back in football last year, Josh Jacobs, statistically, and when you watch him play, was phenomenal. He got the tag. A lot of guys got the tags. Saquon got a tag. Josh Jacobs got the tag, and Tony Pollard, who really has taken over for Elliott in Cowboys, really been their number one guy, he got the tag as well. And I know he obviously got hurt against the Niners, but he got the tag. You're talking about 3 of some of the better running backs in the NFL getting the franchise tag. And I do think at times it's teams saying, you know what? Do we really want to risk it? Because let's be honest here. There's been a couple bad free agent. There's been a couple bad running back signings over the past couple of seasons. Like, Elliott is turning out to not be great. It has been. Well, Le'Veon Bell was a disaster. I don't want to get into him. He's a different story. Christian McCaffrey, as much as he's really good and he's a big factor for the Niners, that blew up in the Niners' face. They gave him that long-term deal and then traded him. And he was a guy with some help, obviously couldn't stay healthy, but the big reason why they got rid of him, obviously they were, rebuilding and stuff. So that's a little bit of a different story. But teams, I do think now are really worried. Are they going to give a guy all this money, to go out there and, it's almost like the new way, and as Tiki Barber put it yesterday on Twitter, he does a great job on Tiki and Tierney, put it yesterday, it's almost like the less expensive way of keeping running backs now. Franchise tag. And it seems like that's kind of where teams are going with it. So franchise tag, obviously about $10.9 million, $10.091 million for Barkley, for Josh Jacobs, and obviously for Tony Pollard as well. The big one that got the franchise tag yesterday was Lamar, $36.416 million. That's crazy. Non-exclusive too, so other teams going to negotiate, and now you hear all this conversation around where he's going. I got to admit, I'm not a huge Lamar guy. I'm not. I wouldn't, if the Jets miss out on Rodgers, I probably wouldn't take him. If the Jets missed out on Rodgers, I probably wouldn't take Lamar. That's just me, but we'll see. We'll see how it all unfolds. So, anyway, we got to move on now to the New York Jets because they obviously are one of the biggest stories right now in the NFL. And I'll tell you what, this is it. Giants yesterday got some of the big headlines around New York sports, and obviously Daniel Jones' extension as well. But right now, as crazy as it sounds, the New York Jets are on top of the football landscape right now. Not so much in a great way, but the entire NFL world, all the lights right now are on Woody Johnson, Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas, Nathaniel Hackett, and the New York Jets in their chase for Aaron Rodgers. So it's been a wild past kind of 24, 48 hours for the New York Jets, really going back to when Derek Carr signed with the Saints. Obviously, we heard him sign on Monday. Late Monday night into Tuesday morning. Yesterday, we heard that the Jets were having conversations with Aaron Rodgers. Multiple reports confirmed it. And then yesterday, kind of middle of the day, Jets flew out to California, flew out to Aaron Rodgers' home to talk to him and meet with him in person. They then flew back early this morning. They flew back to New Jersey, back to Florham Park, one Jets drive where all the magic goes down. And that's been kind of the latest report. So the Aaron Rodgers situation is very fluid. It is a very up-to-the-minute situation where anything can happen at any time. This is it. This is it for the New York Jets. I don't want to go down the road of missing out on Aaron Rodgers and hoping we land Lamar Jackson. You already missed out on Carr. I don't really know if I want to call it missing out on Carr because they didn't really make a strong push. It's not like they were in a bidding war with the Saints. The Saints took him because the timeline didn't line up for the Jets, and that's just the way it is. It's always been Aaron Rodgers. It's always been Rodgers or bust for the Jets, and now's an opportunity for them to go out and get a deal done. And all of these years of the league-wide view on the New York Jets about them being cheap, them not spending wisely, Woody Johnson always saying stuff and never living up to it, can all be erased right now if they go out and get Aaron Rodgers. Woody Johnson has always been cheap. He doesn't spend. Every time he says he's going to spend, he crumbles up in a ball like a scaredy cat and doesn't spend. Now is your time. The entire NFL world is watching you. This is the biggest story right now, not just in the NFL, but one of the biggest story in sports. The Jets have been a laughingstock forever now. Forever. Let's just tell like it is. 54 years. I won't even go into the 12-year playoff drought that we're currently on. I'll go into the 54 years since we won a Super Bowl. Broadway Joe running off the field, holding up the number one in Super Bowl III. That's how long it's been since we've had a franchise quarterback. Now is your time, Woody Johnson. Now is your time to step up, get a deal done, and get Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets. And I've talked about this a lot, obviously, over the course of the past couple weeks, really the course of the entire past couple months, over February and obviously into January once the Jets wrapped up their 2022-2023 campaign with a disappointing end and a 6-game losing streak, obviously, to finish out the year 7-10, which really fueled all the quarterback rumors and why we're currently here on March 9th still talking about the quarterback. Carr, I lean towards at times, but I said it's Carr or Rodgers. There was a little while there where I wanted Carr personally. There's just too many questions. There's just a lot of baggage when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. You also don't have to give anything up for Derek Carr. But now that Carr's off the board, it's Rodgers or bust. I don't care what anybody says. If you don't like Aaron Rodgers, that's fine. Fine. I don't totally disagree. I have my concerns about Rodgers. I have my doubts about Rodgers. I've talked about it a lot on the show. But if you don't like Aaron Rodgers, who's the Jets quarterback? So if you don't want Rodgers, who's your quarterback? Let's say Jimmy G goes to Vegas, Tannehill stays in Tennessee, and let's say Lamar stays in Baltimore. Who is the Jets quarterback then? Or Lamar goes elsewhere. Who's their quarterback? Who is it? If the Jets aren't, and this is my thing too, if the Jets aren't willing to spend, let's say Aaron Rodgers said, I'll come back, I'll play for whoever wants me. Let's say the Jets aren't willing to spend and aren't willing to give up the trade compensation, aren't willing to go out and pay Rodgers his salary. You think they're going to want to do that for Lamar Jackson? Probably not. So if they miss out on Rodgers because of those reasons, who is it going to be? Jacoby Brissett? Gardner Minshew? Mike White? Are we going to have a three-way quarterback competition between Brissett, Minshew, and Mike White? Who's it going to be for this New York Jets team? It's Rodgers or bust at this point. They got to get a deal done. The entire NFL world is watching you. This is your opportunity to change the view league-wide on the franchise if you can get a deal done. You flew out to his home to talk to him. If you can't get a deal done, that's not a good look. Now, I have talked about this a lot. If Rodgers decides to retire, it is what it is. You can't control that. But if you can't match the compensation, you can't match the amount of money you want, you assume he's going to have to take a pay cut, then it is what it is. Or then that's a problem. But if he retires, it is what it is. And Schefter had a report a couple days ago, that Rodgers wants to retire. And that the Jets and some of these other teams are trying to force Rodgers out of retiring. And that's been my biggest concern. How committed is he going to be? He's already won a Super Bowl. He's a 4-time MVP. He's at the tail end of his career. How committed is he going to be specifically with a young roster on improving, getting better if he wants to retire? A lot of people always say, once you think about retiring, there's no going back. Like, if the Jets have to go to his home and drag him out of retirement and say, come, please, I'm begging you, come. And he's like, all right, I'll come. Fine, we'll do it. And it's like 17 games, if they go 5-11 or 5-12, that's ugly. And that's the concern. Is he willing to put in the work? Is he willing to do all the other stuff if he really wants to just retire? So that is my concern there. But ultimately, the Jets got to give them their sales pitch. And yesterday, they had to give them their best sales pitch. And this is where having Nathaniel Hackett helps, because he's been with Rodgers. He worked with him. They're close. They're very close. He knows how to read Rodgers. He knows how to tell if he's being serious or not. I talked about this yesterday. Like, Rodgers is probably, out of the four of those guys, Rodgers probably trusts Nathaniel Hackett the most, and Nathaniel Hackett's the biggest X factor of all this. They're sitting at a table. Let's say they were sitting at a round table at Rodgers' house, and it was Woody, JD, Saleh, and Nathaniel Hackett. I got a question. Drop in the comments down below. Who do you trust the most, first of all, out of those four of those guys? And number two, Hackett's pivotal in this all. Because Hackett, let's be real here. Woody doesn't know what a football looks like. I like Joe D. He'll probably talk more of the logistic contract number side of it, and he's done a very good job of that. I also trust Joe D. getting a trade. A lot of people out there think the Jets are going to have to give up everything. I don't think that's going to be the case. Joe D. has shown a lot over the course of the past couple seasons that he's more than capable of making trades for guys that, really, really aren't that, or not giving up much for guys that turn out to be really good. So I do trust Jody there. Salah's probably going to just give you regular coaches speak. Hackett's the guy that say, hey, we work together. You're going to come in. It's going to be the same system. We'll ease you into it. It won't be a drastic change. That's really where the sales pitch has to come in. And you hope the Jets did that. The Jets had to give their best sales pitch yesterday. So I will tell you this. Packers giving the Jets permission to talk with Rodgers tells me that I think there's probably compensation they agreed on. It's just now up to Aaron Rodgers to decide whether or not he, A, wants to return to football, B, wants to come back to the Packers, or C, wants to return and go to the Jets. That's the big thing. So, and Rodgers, and look, this is why I do think this might drag on into the weekend, because Rodgers is a very forward-thinking, very just, and I don't know if I want to say forward-thinking, but he's just a very, I feel like Woody Johnson talking about Adam Gase. He's a very just guy that takes time. He takes time. Like, he likes the bright lights. He's a very methodical thinker where he's going to take a deep dive into the options. He had his darkness retreat to figure out what his future is. You have a feeling he's going to take time, but the bottom line is this: by Monday, when free agency opens, we have to have an answer. It's Wednesday. By Monday, we have to have an answer. So, and hopefully that answer is the New York Jets. Because let's be honest here, outside of Rodgers, who's going to be your quarterback? I like Jimmy G, but he's hurt. Lamar, I know there's a lot of positives, but he's injury prone. And how is he going to fit in with these receivers? And the notion that he's never had any good receivers around him, I don't think it's quite fair. I mean, he had Marquise Brown, who's not very good, I admit. But he did have Mark Andrews. I mean, he had a very good tight end. He utilized him. He runs a lot. He does. He hasn't had over 3,000 yard passing in the past couple seasons. He's been hurt a lot. The injuries concern me. And I don't really get where people are acting like, oh, the injuries are just going to go away. He's a mobile quarterback. If anything, they're only going to get worse over the next couple seasons. So I don't like the whole notion on Lamar. I wouldn't hate it. I'd take Lamar over anybody else. I'm not in love with it. I'd rather Rodgers. To me, it's Rodgers or, okay, you can go out and get Lamar, but there's question. The injury concern is just too big for me. Everybody says, oh, well, if he goes out, he's great. Forget the injuries. Yeah, well, if he's playing 8 games, is he really going to be great then? If we're seeing 8 games of Lamar and 9 games of Mike White, is that going to be good? I don't know about that. So that's my concern there. I also just don't think he's going anywhere. I don't. I just don't think he is. But that's just me. I think this Lamar thing's going to take a long time because he doesn't have an agent, and that seems to be hurting him right now. And that seems to be too why teams aren't that all in on negotiating with him, it seems. So I just don't think Lamar right now is completely realistic. Rodgers is here. You're the only team really going after him. You're the only team. Rodgers is at your fingertips. Just bring him in. That's my view on it. So now we move on here to the New York Sports Update and the rest of things going on in the world of sports tonight. As I mentioned, a lot of exciting things going on in college basketball. Looking forward to that. St. John's playing right now against Butler. They're currently winning 44-29 at halftime. St. John's obviously got to win out to get an automatic bid. So Big East tournament tonight. SEC tournament begins as well. And tomorrow, a lot of exciting things, obviously. Friday, actually, you'll get Kentucky. They'll place the winner of a couple of the games today. So a lot to look forward to tonight in terms of the conference tournament play starting to pick up. As for the NBA, though, you got the Hawks, Wizards, Cavs, Heat, Mavs, Pelicans, Celtics, Trailblazers, Nuggets, Bulls, Suns, Thunder, and the Raptors, Clippers. As for the NHL tonight, you got 3 games on, all out-of-market games for the New York sports area. You got Red Wings, Blackhawks, Jets, Wild, and the Canucks, Ducks. So that's it. That's what we got on tap for today. Hopefully, Friday, we'll be talking Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets. Hopefully. That's what we all want. Man, oh man, I can't wait. I can't wait I can't wait anymore. I'm nervous, excited. The Jets are one move away from putting this team to playoffs and beyond potentially, and they're also one move away from going back to reality of ending up with Jacoby Brissett. That's where the Jets are. One move's going to depend a lot. It's either we end up with Rodgers and we're ecstatic, or we don't end up with Rodgers and it's same old Jets. This is terrible. Why am I a Jets fan? I don't want to be a Jets fan. kind of feelings that we've gotten a lot over the course of the past couple seasons. So it's where we're at. But I think this is. I truly think this is going to leak into the weekend. I've said over the course of the past couple days that I said it would be, on Monday. I said it would be 24 to 48 to like 72 at 2 hours. I said Wednesday. I think Monday I said Wednesday. If I had to make a prediction, it's Wednesday, and a move hasn't happened. If I had to make a prediction now, I'd probably say more towards Friday, Saturday. At the latest Sunday, because again Monday you gotta get a deal done. You can't sell. Oh, we're gonna get Aaron Rodgers. You can't sell that to free agents. They don't know, so they gotta get a deal done before Monday. So it's coming. It's right here. It can't take much longer. Less than a week, a deal's got to get done. That's just the way it is. So we'll see. A lot more happening. So stay tuned. A lot more content coming your way. Once Rodgers gets traded, obviously these are Monday, Wednesday, Friday pods. So I'll talk about this. If he gets traded, today, I might try to squeeze in a pod later today or something. I might. Because let's be honest here, if he gets traded today, then that's all of tomorrow. And maybe Friday out. I don't know. Either way, Friday, I do my pod. So once he gets traded, check out In the Trench with Gangrene on Apple Podcast. I'll have my instant reaction right there on the trade. So, and then I'll obviously have my reaction on the trade as well on this channel on Friday. So if that move gets done. If the move gets done over the weekend, we'll come back Monday. We'll talk about it Monday and, talk all about it. So stay tuned. A lot more content coming your way. As always, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.